So you put.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل
وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني من نور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. خب, alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of Al-Fiqh al-Istidlali. As you remember, our discussion after discussion about ghibar or dust was about smoke, and we already mentioned some of the discussion about smoke. In order to have a quick review, so basically we said the question is smoke, including smoking tobacco, cigarettes, muftir, is breaking fasting? Some have said yes. Then we started discussing their arguments. The first was what Sahib Madarik and Sahib Hadaiq al-Nadira have attributed to some of contemporary fuqaha, that the same reason about ghibar, about dust, applies here. So they say dust is ذرات تتعدى إلى الحرق, some small particles, pieces, that they go inside the throat. They say a smoke is the same. Sheikh Irvani said, but this is not acceptable. A smoke is different from dust, and it becomes like qiyas. It depends, of course, on faqih to be able to say that the hukm depends on a cause, on illah, which is here also or not. If we can establish that the hukm is here, then it's not qiyas. If we cannot establish, and just based on similarity we say that is the same, then becomes qiyas. Number two, Sahib Jawahir reported from Kashif al-Ghita this argument, second argument, that whoever is used to smoking, so now it's more smoking as smoking tobacco, not smoking, for example, what is in the polluted air, like coming from engine of the cars, etc. No, whoever is used to smoking and enjoys, gets pleasure, becomes like food for them, qut. And if it becomes like qut or food, then certainly having food during the month of Ramadan when you're fasting is a problem. So smoking becomes like that. And smoking is worse than dust. Dust, no one enjoys, having dust. Sheikh Irvani answered that, first of all, then this would not apply to people who are not used to smoking, those who don't get pleasure. If someone by accident, for example, does something which would lead to a smoke going inside the smoker, then this doesn't apply to that person. Also, who said if someone is smoked and gets pleasure from smoking, it becomes like qut? Qut is something that fills the stomach. shaba happens. Here, you don't, fill your stomach with smoke. And orfan, in the common sense, they don't call this akl or shorb. The third argument was what again we have in Jawahir, based on the position as a mabna, as a basis, as a foundation. If you have this opinion, so if it is a fundamental opinion, that whatever goes inside fasala ilal jawf, whatever goes inside, even if it is not normally eaten, like ghabar, if you have this mabna, then you have to say a smoke is also a problem, because a smoke also goes inside and can even sometimes be thicker than dust. The answer was, if Sahib Jawahir means that anything that goes inside is muftir, even if it is not considered as akl and shurb, we don't accept this mabna. We said before that unless it is considered as akl and shurb, we don't accept that it is muftir. If Sahib Jawahir wants to say, no, it is actually considered as akl or shurb. So if he wants to say just going inside is enough, we said no. If he says no, it is akl and then it's muftir, or it is shurb and then it is muftir, we don't accept that this is considered as akl or shurb. Because he says dukhan is like air. If you take air inside, Orf doesn't say you have eaten something or you have drunk something, because there is no jermiyah, it doesn't have a kind of physical mass. At least you can say, I have doubt. You cannot be sure. You can say, okay, maybe. We say it is not akl, but if someone says it is possibly akl, possibility is not enough. Okay, up to here we studied before, I said as a review. Now, argument 4. ما في مستند نراقي من جريان السيرة على التجنب عن التدخين. The late Naraqi, in his book Mustanad, he says, this is different from Mustanad al-Urwa, this is before Sahib Urwa. In his book he says that we have sirah, means sirah mutasharra'ah, the conduct, the practice of mu'minin who are religious, who are practicing, has been that they avoid smoking in the months of Ramadan when they are fasting. So even if you are not able to establish this from, for example, hadith, he says this is sirah, means sirah mutasharra'ah, not sirah Prophet or Ahlul Bayt, sirah mutasharra'ah, which must be rooted in teachings that they have received and instruction have received from the Ma'sumin. Sheikh Irwani says, okay, first of all, if we accept that there is such a sirah, which seems to be the case, people don't smoke when they are fasting, خب, sirah here can be compatible with two things. Maybe they avoid because they consider it as haram, as something which is prohibited, or they consider as something which is makruh, which is just disliked. Sirah, binay uqala, sirah mutasharra'ah, binay uqala, ijma. As you remember in Usul al-Fiqh, we said these are dalil lubbi. We have two types of dalil. Dalil lubbi, dalil lafzi. Lafzi means linguistic. In linguistic, reasons and arguments, you can benefit from asalatul zuhur and asalatul umum, asalatul itlaq, etc. But dalil lubbi doesn't have lisan, doesn't have a kind of language Therefore, you cannot go for asalatul umum. In dalil lobby, we always refer to qadr mutayaqqahan, to what is certain. Okay? So, when there is possibility of their sira be based on hurma or based on karaha, you cannot establish that it was haram. Maybe it was makruh. You cannot say, no, like for example, sigha amr or fi'l amr, we say no, they have zuhur fil wujub. Here you cannot say there is zuhur fil wujub. Okay? The same thing, for example, if Ma'asum says, اغتسل الجمعة. Okay? If there was no evidence otherwise, you would say, okay, فعل أمر ظاهر في الوجوب. Okay? أصالة الظهور means that we should go by ظهور في الوجوب unless there is conflicting overriding evidence. But if we see Ma'asum is doing ghusl Jum'ah, this sirah cannot be taken as ظاهر في الوجوب. Maybe it is mustahab. There is no asalatul zuhur here. I hope it's clear. So, we say sira is a'am min al-hurmati wal-kiraha. In qult, if we want to take the side of marhum al-Naraqi and say something on his behalf. If you say, إن مقصوده هو التجنب بنحو اللزوم. If you say marhum al-Naraqi didn't mean that just they avoid smoking when fasting, means necessarily they avoid. They take it as obligatory to avoid. Okay? So, this then will be reduced to the argument based on irtikaz mutasharra'a. So we have to say that there is something deep in the mind of religious people that they must avoid smoking when they are fasting. Sheikh Irwani says we cannot establish that this goes back to the time of Ma'sumin, even if there is such a irtikaz, such implicit or hidden, kind of understanding in deep in their mind. We cannot establish that this goes back to the time of Ma'sumin. Why? Because the subject is new. Sometimes there is a subject that existed in the time and exists in our time, and if all mutasharra' throughout generations have acted upon it in a certain way, we can say this goes back to the time of Ma'sum, for example. But maybe in the time of Ma'sum we didn't have such a thing as smoking tobacco. He says, إن التدخين المتعارف اليوم is smoking which is common today, conventional today, customary. لا يحرز وجوده في عصر المعصوم. It's not established that it existed in the era of معصومين عليهم السلام. So that ليحرز انعقاد الارتكاز على التجنب عن بنحو اللزوم. So that we can establish that there is deep understanding, implicit understanding, irtikaz, that they must necessarily avoid it from the time of Ma'sum and say, okay, they learned it from Ma'sumin. There is no continuity up to the time of Ma'sum. Yes, dukhan was there. Smoke was there. Yeah, even we have Surah Dukhan. But we are talking about dukhan in the sense of smoking. This was not there, or at least لا يحرس. والدخان مطلقا وإن كان موجودا في ذلك العصر. Dukhan, like for example, when they were cooking, they were making fire and with wood and was smoke there. والدخان مطلقا وإن كان موجودا في ذلك العصر إلا أنه لا يحرز انعقاد الارتكاز على التجنب عنه. But we don't have this irtikaz that in the time of Ma'asumin up to now, for example, the months of Ramadan, they were not cooking. Whoever was fasting was not able to cook and sit next to the fire and a smoke goes. Or someone in the bakery, for example, etc. We don't have such irtikaz. Argument 5. In Mustanad, again, we mean Mustanad of late Naraqi, Mustanad of Shia. It says that in Arabic language, smoking, like tadkhin, is sometimes called shurb. The late Mirza Shirazi, in his fatwa against tobacco, the historical issue which was therefore he wanted to cancel the monopoly which was given to the British company in Iran for tobacco. So he made a fatwa from Iraq, and he said, from today, shurbatutun means smoking tobacco. So sometimes shurb is used for maye, something drinking liquid. Sometimes shurb can be for smoking. So Marhum al-Naraqi wants to say what makes fasting void is akl and shurb. Smoking is also called shurb. ما في المستند أيضا من إطلاق الشرب عند العرب على التدخين. Among Arabs, shurb is also applied to smoking. Sheikh Irwani says this is not really shurb. This is majazi. This is metaphoric. They don't consider this as drinking. وفيها أنه إطلاق مجازي. It's not real. 6. Some ulama have said, this is mentioned in Mustamsak al-Urwat al-Wuthqa by the late Ayatollah al-Uzma Hakim, أن التدخين ماح لسورة الصوم. Maybe you have come across this about fasting, about praying, salat, about wudu. Sometimes if there is too much gap, ulama say this is not acceptable because it would damage hayatus salat or suratus salat or wudu. So salat is a combination of several parts, but they have to be together as one unit. If you stop for too long, or for example you are making wudu and then you start walking few minutes and then still your hand is wet, but you want to resume after a few minutes, maybe people say no, hayatul wudu is damaged. So it's a one unit, has to have continuity, ittisal. So it has been argued that smoking destroys the form, the cast, the shape of fasting, according to irtikaz mutasharra'ah. So mutasharra'ah, maybe they are not able to argue for it, but they have this implicit hidden understanding that if you fast and smoke, fasting is destroyed. You know the answer, can guess the answer from what we said before. وفيه أن التدخين لم يحرز ثبوته في عصر المعصوم we don't know whether smoking existed in the time of Ma'sumin. So how can then you say that there is an irtikaz which continues till the time of Ma'sumin? So what is the conclusion? وَمِنْ هَذَا كُلِّهِ يَتَّضِحُ. From all what we said, we mentioned arguments and one by one discussed them, and we were not convinced. So what can be established from all this discussion is أنه لا دليل على مفترية الدخان مطلقا. There is no argument, no proof to say that smoke is muftir at all, mutlaqa. Whether it is smoking tobacco, cigarette, or just a smoke in the air coming from engines of the cars. Mutlaq means any kind of it is not proved to be problem for fasting. بل الدليل على العدم. Not only we don't have reason to say it's making fasting void, we can argue that it's not a problem. Sometimes we say we don't have any reason, therefore according to asalatul hilliya, we say كل شيء لك حلال حتى تعرف أنه حرام. We don't know it is haram, so we can do it. But we have actually dalil ala al-adam. Means ala adam al-muftariyah. What is dalil ala al-muftariyah? Zuhurat of some of the hadith. For example, موثقة عمرو بن سعيد المتقدمة. We had موثقية عمرو بن سعيد before, which indicated that it's possible to put oud and then smell it, or make the smoke of oud, which is giving good fragrance, to go inside. There was no problem about tadkhin bi'oud. Oud was available at that time. Or Sahihatu Muhammad ibn Muslim, that restricted muftirat into 3. Of course, akl and shurb were considered as one. Then was marital relation, and there was irtimas fil ma. There was no mention of tadkhin. Tadkhin was not one of those. Now, we were not able to establish. I am not saying what is my view or what is acceptable. We are reading the book, so according to the Sheikh Irwani, we didn't establish that it is a problem. Indeed, we seem to have evidence that it is not a problem. But is it now okay that if someone has this fatwa or follows a marja, if there's a marja who has this fatwa, to start smoking in public in the months of Ramadan? He says no. نعم لا يجوز التظاهر به. It's not permissible to show this, to do it explicitly in the public. Why? Because although this is not haram according to this fatwa, but in the view of people, it is considered as not showing respect to the months of Ramadan. Because maybe I can add this point. It seems he means this. To offend, to insult, or to respect, these are urfi. These are things which are many times based on understanding of the public or common sense at that time. Even, for example, words of the same language at one point can be taken as offense, another point maybe not as offense. Or something maybe in one language is offense, in another language is not offense, depending on the culture, language, customs. So if from your fiqhi perspective this is not haram and you can smoke during the month of Ramadan, but aren't you in the public considered as someone who has no respect for the month of Ramadan? Because all other people are avoiding that and they consider this as lack of respect. Okay? So he says, لا يجوز التظاهر به لانتهاك حرمة شهر رمضان به في نظر العامة. Because the respect for Shahr Ramadan will be damaged in the opinion of the general public. Now we go to the next topic, which is related. It's not a new chapter. It's under ghibar, then dukhan. We discuss bukhar, steam. When water is, for example, boiling, or you go to bath, and lots of steam. هل البخار مفطر? Is bukhar also muftir, breaks the fasting? صاحب عروه رحمت الله علیه اسد کاظم یزدی قوا في العروة الحاقه بالغبار. He said it's قوی. When فقها say it's قوی or al-aqwa or لا يخلو من قوة, this is fatwa. It's not ihtiyat, it's fatwa. So Sahib al-Urwa says it is strong to say that steam is like dust. وَوَافَقَهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ جَمَاعَةٌ. And some of ulama who have comments on Urwatul Wusqa, you see they have agreed with Sahib al-Urwa. Why? Maybe some of the arguments that we mentioned about smoke can be used here. Those who supported that smoking is a problem, they can use some of those arguments to say that bukhar is also a problem. Some of them, not all of them. For example, for bukhar they don't use shorb. But some of those arguments, like anything that goes inside, etc. وَلَعَلَّهُ لِبَعْضِ الْوُجُوهِ الْمُتَقَدِّمَةِ فِي الدُّخَانِ. Some of those arguments that we mentioned about smoke may be applicable to steam as well. But حكى في الجواهر and كاشف الغطاء. صاحب جواهر quotes from كاشف الغطاء عدم المفترية. You can also say حكية. حكى because we know that it is صاحب جواهر. We can say حكية will become مجهول, then becomes عدم المفترية. صاحب جواهر says, according to كاشف الغطاء رحمة الله عليه, bukhar is not muftir unless إلا مع الغلبة والاستدامة. So much steam is there, and also for a long time. For example, if someone goes to a place full of steam, sometime in the past when they had public bath, so water was like a pool of hot water, and the roof was not too high, so it was lots of smoke. Maybe even people could not see each other unless if they are very close. So if there is overwhelming steam and continues for some time, istidama, then here Kashif al says this is a problem. Otherwise, adamul muftariya. Why, if it is very thick and continuous, is a problem? Because لقيامه آنذاك مقام الماء. Because in that case, in that time, then this steam becomes like water if it is for too long. Sheikh Irwani says al-munasibu adamul muftariya. But the suitable opinion is to say that steam is not muftir. لعدم الدليل, because we don't have any dalil, any argument to say that it is, like we said, what we said about ghibar and bukhar, بل للدليل على العدم. We just not said the same thing about smoking. We said we don't have dalil, but we said for example from Muwassaqah etc. we can understand, or Sayyid Muhammad ibn Muslim, that it's restricted to few items and this is not one of them. So he says لا عدم الدليل, there is no argument. بل indeed للدليل على العدم, we can argue against it. One, the first dalil على العدم, the first thing that we can argue against muftariya of Bukhar is صحيحة ابن مسلم محمد بن مسلم الحاصرة للمفترات في ثلاثة. It restricted muftarat to 3. ليس البخار منها. Steam was not one of them. أكل والشرب was 1. marital relation 2. ارتماس في الماء 3. Number 2, جريان السير على دخول الحمامات والطبخ وفتح القدور في نهار الصوم. There is such a practice, common practice among mu'mineen, that in the months of Ramadan, في نهار الصوم, not in the night, even during the day, they go to hammamat, they go to bath, they take shower. Sometimes there's lots of steam. It's not that in the months of Ramadan they go only in the night to take shower. Or they cook, and when you cook, sometimes you have to open these big pots. You have to open, and lots of steam comes. لو كان ذلك مفترا, if a steam was muftir, because this is something which is commonly happening. لو كان لبانا لو كان لاشتهر, if this was muftir, it should have become well known among people and people should have avoided. So this is not like some rulings of Hajj that, for example, people go, maybe some of people once in their life, and many people maybe don't go to Hajj. So rulings of Hajj may not become very famous, but cooking and taking shower etc. in the months of Ramadan, it's a very common issue. If there was a restriction, it would have become well known. So, Alhamdulillah, this discussion completed. So the general point was that Sheikh Irwani believed that we don't have enough ground to suggest that just having dust or smoke or steam going inside is a problem. Indeed, he suggests that we may have reason against it. But the next thing that we have to discuss is تعمد البقاء على الجنابة إلى طلوع الفجر. We, inshallah, open this discussion and continue بإذن in the next session. If someone is junub, then has to make ghusl before Fajr. So when Fajr comes, we have to be fasting. Our fasting starts with Fajr. And you cannot be junub when Fajr starts or Fajr comes. So one has to make ghusl before that. If someone is asleep and when wakes up realizes that, oh, it's already Fajr, that's in some cases no problem. But if it is intentional, deliberate, that's the problem. But we want to now see what fatwa, what opinions are there, what arguments are there. So it's a bahs istidlali. Everyone, of course, refers to their marja, but here we are trying to understand the way they argue. تعمد البقاء على الجنابة إلى طلوع الفجر. Intentional remaining with janabah up to Fajr. دليل المسألة والاختلاف فيها. We want to discuss what is the reason for this and what opinions are there, differing positions about this issue, this mas'ala. Al-mashhur muftariyatuhu. What is famous among fuqaha is that ta'ammud al-baqa al-janab ila tul al-fajr is muftir. Bal du'i al-ijma'u alayh. Even some people have argued that there is ijma'. For example, in Madarik al-Ahkam, Hadaiq al-Nadira, Jawahir, there is ijma' claimed for this issue. But ijma' seems problematic because it seems that there were some ulama that they disagreed. Unless someone, investigates and finds that no, they didn't have this as their decisive opinion. نسب الخلاف إلى ابن بابوی و الأردبیلی، یعنی مقدس اردبیلی و الداماد فی رسالته الرضاعیه. Sayyid Damad in his essay on رضاع, he has this discussion. خب, why مشهور says this is muftir? And it seems some people say it's not muftir. Why? منشأ الخلاف هو الروايات. Because we have different riwayat, then which riwayah is sahih, which riwayah is not sahih, and then dalala of these riwayat, how to put them together. This is a fiqh discussion. مستند المشهور روايات عدة. The basis of fatwa mashhur is a set of hadith. لعلها عشر. Maybe there are 10 hadiths. والدعاء or والدعية. والدعاء يعني هو goes back to صاحب الرياض. والدعية خب is مجهول. في الرياض أنها قريبة من التواتر. صاحب الرياض says these hadiths are so many and so many times narrated generation by generation that they are close to tawatur. It's not mutawatir, but it's like mustafid, for example. These hadiths can be divided into 3 groups. The hadiths which say that it's muftir. Al-awwal or al-ula, طائفة الأولى ما دل على ثبوت الكفارة على تارك الغسل متعمدا. Some of these hadiths, so the first group are those that indicate if someone intentionally doesn't make ghusl before Fajr, must pay kafara. For example, Sahihat Abi Basir, this Sahiha, and Abi Abdullah alayhi salam, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, رجل أجنب في شهر رمضان بالليل ثم ترك الغسل متعمدا. A man in the night of Ramadan became mujnib, but ترك الغسل, but didn't make ghusl متعمدا حتى أصبح, till Fajr, after Fajr. Imam alayhi salam said, يعتق رقبة أو يصوم شهرين متتابعين أو يطعم 60 مسكينا. And Imam mentioned that there is kafara for kafara iftar, and is one of the three things: either to free a slave or to fast 2 months successively, which of course can be 31 days and then 29 days can be separated, or to feed 60 poor people. Khob, you may say this doesn't say anything about iftar, for example, qaza. When we know that there is kafara, we understand that it means that the fasting was void. فإنه بعد دلالتها على ثبوت الكفارة تدل بالالتزام المتشرعي على المفترية. Religious people, they know that there is a correlation. If there is kafara, means this had made fasting void. بمعنى وجوب القضاء. So, pas kafara is necessary. Qadha of this fasting is also necessary. واحتمال كون ثبوتها تعبديا بعيد. If someone says, no, kafara is not because it was void and had to make qadha. This is a hukm ta'abbudi. Imam alayhi salam here said that he must give kafara without any implication. Ta'abbudan has to do this, but the rest is okay, and we shouldn't try to draw out of these implications. So this is very ba'id. It seems that it is according to the general rules of fiqh, and when there is kafara, his fasting was void. Qaribun minha. This was Sahih Abi Basir. Qaribun minha, close to this, is Riwayat Sulaiman ibn Hafs al-Marwazi, which we had before. لكن وثاقته لم تثبت. Therefore, it's not Sahih or even Wasaqa, unless, as we said, you accept that one of the Tawthiqat Amme is this narrator is mentioned in chains of narrators in Kamil al-Ziyarat by Ibn Qulaway. If it is mentioned in Kamil al-Ziyarat by Ibn Qulaway, then we accept it as Tawthiq Am. If you have such mabna, then you can verify this narrator. إلا بناء على وثاقة كل من ورد في أسانيد كامل الزيارة. خب, this was the first group of hadith. Then inshallah we study in the next session 2 other groups of hadith that suggest this تعمد البقاء على الجنابة إلى طول الفجر is muftir. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Is there any question? No question?